Welcome to the James Rice Show, a humorous, entertaining, and sometimes thought-provoking look at teaching and studying abroad. Join the conversation as James guides you through his experiences and provides insights into how to improve your English and how to improve your teaching of English. And now, here's the man you've been waiting for, James Rice.
Coming up on this week's episode, Online Teaching and Learning, we welcome an expert, Krista Morrison, to help students and teachers improve their online learning experience. All coming up on the James Rice Show. Hello, my students and fellow educators out there. Welcome to this week's episode of the James Rice Show, kind of week 3 of lockdown episodes. Yes, I am currently in lockdown here in Toronto, Canada. We are experiencing, of course, self-isolation like many of you abroad and in North America. And so welcome. I'm here in Toronto, Canada, the author of the Study It ESL textbook series, one of the authors as well as the creator of the series. And you can find more at studyitbooks.com for your online classes. All right, so if you're looking for digital content for your online classes, check it out, studyitbooks.com. I'm teaching right now in my high school 27 kids online at the same time in one class, and I'm using the Study It ESL textbooks, and it's fantastic. The books are amazing. I'm able to use video interactive activities. I use Zoom, of course, as many of you are using, and with the Zoom, I'm able to do the breakout rooms and create activities that are digitized, digital activities for the students that Study It has created. So if you're looking for content, check out studyitbooks.com. And if you're looking for more ideas about what the future holds, why don't you join in the Future of Education Conference? Yeah, I'm going to be the host and moderator of this conference, and it is online, of course, and it is free to join with some amazing, amazing guests that are coming on to discuss what the future of education will be. And one of the guests is Krista Morrison. And Krista is from McMaster University, and she specializes in digital pedagogy. So how to teach online, how to study online, and what she has to say is going to blow your mind. And you got to listen. It's going to come up after this first segment. We'll have her on. So I'm still concerned. You know, Stephanie, our producer, I'm looking out at Stephanie here now. Stephanie, you know, I'm still concerned, very, very concerned about Japan and Brazil and even Sweden, who they are not locking down. They are not going into self-isolation. I think they are somewhat. I mean, the government's recommending the countries to lock down, but Japan, no. Not at the time of this recording anyways. Not a full lockdown. Kind of stay home for the weekend. Don't go out. I mean, I'm very worried. Having lived through SARS, knowing that in the SARS situation here in Toronto, our government put the economy ahead of healthcare. And what happened was they absolutely destroyed our economy for about 18 months. Because nobody would come back into Toronto because they just didn't trust that SARS was cleared up. And I'm worried about that for Japan and Brazil and Sweden. We had an update last week from Brazil, so if you get a chance to listen to that episode, take a listen, where the language school owner that we spoke to from GW English, he was talking about the choices that they're making in Brazil. And he said that basically it's either we die from hunger or we die from the coronavirus. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I get it. I'm worried as well with this COVID-19 or coronavirus, whatever you would like to call it. I'm worried about language schools and language agents in general. And right now, I have heard of 2 school closures. one in Ireland, the English studio, which has been around for many years, and another one that has been around for many years in Vancouver, Canada, in Lingua Vancouver, has closed its doors. So 2 big language schools shutting down because of the coronavirus. And in the Language Travel magazine, which is an industry magazine that I subscribe to, they talk about agencies also experiencing a lot of potential pain, economic pain, and some may be considering closing their doors. So students, here on the show, I had recommended to you to wait until May 1st and then decide about studying abroad. Well, I'm going to modify that a bit because I'm suggesting wait until June 1st. Now, clearly, April is gone for schools. April is we're all shutting down here in North America, and there's no point to come as we're trying to manage the healthcare situation. And I would say possibly May, if everything goes perfectly, but it does not look that way to me. So I would say consider June 1st if you're thinking about studying abroad, and just from June 1st, see what's happening. Don't go abroad from June 1st. I'm saying let's see what's happening. Many schools are also just going online now, and that is what I'm seeing happen for many language schools, many language programs. They're going online and for all of April, and they're probably going to extend it into May and even further. The question is, how well are they doing it? Because you cannot just go online and use Zoom. You need teachers who have some experience teaching online, which many teachers do not have that experience. And you also need content. Like, what are they teaching? Are you just chatting to somebody online? No. And that's why I'm talking about the Study It books, because the Study It books are digital. They can download them. Teachers can share them on Zoom. You have content just like a normal paper textbook. And some of the content I'm seeing out there, students, I got to say, it's not good. It's like doing a digital exercise online. That is not online learning. So you need to shop well. All right. So if you want to study and you want to study online, you need to take a look and you need to shop and you need to think about what you're buying. Okay. Because it could be just some teachers talking. And the teacher may not be experienced, or they may not have good content, or it may be kind of looks like interactive content, but it's just really fill in the blank exercises and nothing too exciting. So content is the king. All right. You need good content. And hopefully our Study It books will supply a lot of interesting activities, and we have projects and things like that. And students, you can just download the books if you want. Just download them, okay? And we also doing online teaching ourselves through the Study It books. So if you are interested in contacting us to do some online learning, we are doing $5 English classes. So if it's just for helping students out during this crisis. And you can see it at studyitbooks.com/school. And just go on and you can see some of the great teachers and use some of our content as well. So, it's a bit of a commercial. I don't do this often talking about the Study It books that we've created, but I do think it is timely, and I do think content is so important. And I think Krista will talk about that as well in our interview. So we're going to bring Krista on next. She is an amazing lady, and you are going to learn a lot, students, about how you can improve yourself studying online. And teachers, this is an absolute must listen. Coming up next, Krista Morrison.
The Study It textbooks are the first ever completely digital and interactive English as a second language textbook series. Once downloaded, these textbooks do not require a Wi-Fi connection. Students and teachers can use them anywhere, anytime. Used in over 40 schools, universities, and NGOs worldwide. Study It is the future of English teaching. Visit www.studyitbooks.com for more information.
I'm pleased to welcome Krista Morrison, a Digital Pedagogy Specialist from McMaster University, who's actually working on an e-learning platform right now at McMaster. Thank you, Krista, for coming onto the show, and welcome to the James Rice Show.
Thanks, James. Thank you for the invitation and the privilege to talk to you.
Now, I think you must be incredibly busy right now. How has this COVID-19 affected you personally?
To be honest, I'm functioning on adrenaline at this point. I'm having all these sessions one after the other, either with individual faculty members or, with groups of faculty doing training, all from my laptop. And it's just fantastic. I'm actually scared for, the time that will come where I'm not going to have this interaction with people where they're so appreciative and they're so, hungry to learn more and to find solutions. It's a very creative and satisfying time for me.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, because I am also finding out there a real motivation among teachers. And obviously, teachers as well as learners, they're motivated now to learn how to deliver content and deliver lectures and to study online.
Yes, I agree with that. I think, comfort zones were stretched and are being stretched, and it will never go back to what it was before, which is wonderful. And there's a lot of self-awareness and self-education, a lot of experimentation going on, and a lot of successes to celebrate. It is so wonderful to talk to them. And, the day after they had their first synchronous session with students, and they say, we enjoyed it. They enjoyed it.
Good.
Yeah, it's
good. Now,
it's really
you did say, it was wonderful, but I can hear a lot of teachers shaking their head going, this is not wonderful. This is so difficult, Krista. I'm going crazy. I'm pulling my hair out trying to figure out all this technology.
Yes.
What tips do you have for teachers who have been thrown into teaching online and feeling a bit overwhelmed?
Yeah. So I first want to talk about the teaching online. I think it's important for them to realize that nobody expects them to teach online. If we apply for a position as an online teacher, or if we are asked to teach a course online, it's a long process, 6 to 9 months for a university course that you will go through designing and redesigning a course for online. But what they were asked to do is, very suddenly they had to come up with the ways to connect with their learners via digital devices, on digital learning spaces. And they were asked to complete the courses which they started most probably, in most cases, on campus or in a blended format. So this is more of an emergency remote teaching that they're in. And I think, I think this is a good thing, because we should probably have these skills in our bags for any kind of situation that can occur, to be able to continue learning in virtual spaces. So in terms of tips for teachers, I would say, based on research, we know that the best learning happens online when there's interaction between the students, when there's interaction between the students and the instructor, and when the content that you share or the activities that you come up with is very interactive. So they have to interact with the content. So the whole idea of
Sorry, Krista,
having...
could you give us an example of an interactive exercise online? What would that look like?
Yes, I think the most common one is the breakout rooms. When you ask students to form small groups and have some activity, whether they work on a math problem together or whether it's a think, pair, share kind of activity where they have to give their opinions and come to a conclusion and share it back to the bigger group. There are numerous activities like this. There's
So it's just like pair work. Just
Yes.
putting the kids in pairs or small groups
Yes.
and having them
Yes.
complete an assignment or a project together and then bring it back to the class.
Yes. There are really wonderful practical ideas out there. And, I can easily share loads of links to web pages and research papers on that. But yeah, it's basically, I would say the tip is this. Try and create a space where there's interaction between the students and the instructor, and the students and the content. And keep things short and simple. It doesn't matter what we do on digital platforms. We know, I'm from a journalism background as well. We know that the attention span of human beings when they interact on digital devices is way shorter than when we work with paper or, another kind of media. So keep things short and simple, change it up, have different things. Don't, think you have to take 3 hours of a classroom and do 3 hours online. If you can share content with students in sort of a flipped format where they can watch a video or read through something beforehand, and then when you go online, there's activity, there's interaction, that participation that happens. I would say that would be my first tip.
I would agree with that, and I would say, but the complaint I'm getting, Krista, from university students, specifically university and college students, what they're telling me is that the professors are simply uploading their lectures online and then asking the students to watch the lecture and then do the assignment. And they're not getting any interaction with the professor or with the teaching assistants.
Exactly. No, and that is why I said, if you there's so much in terms of what we can do to make learning rich and deep in terms of digital platforms. But if you can just ask yourself, how can I create opportunities for the students to interact with each other? How do I create opportunities for them? Like a virtual office hour is another easy one, is, make yourself available for half an hour and, invite whoever wants to come online for a synchronous session or even asynchronously, like a text message kind of session, if that's more practical for where you are and for your students. But be available to have that interaction going. And in terms of the content, absolutely. We don't have to just record things and share it as content like that. There are other ways in which we can make it more interactive. And the other, experience that most professors will have already is like student response systems that they would use in a classroom. Now, before we had technologies that would help us, ask questions, and students would go on their phones or an iClicker and give their response, an instructor might have handed out 5 different colors of little cards and, distributed to students. And when they ask a question, they would raise one color for answer number 1, or a different color for answer number 2. So, we can take the same active learning and engaged learning that we do in classrooms, and we can copy it online. And there's a host of, tools and things that make that easy for us. So it's really, they should stick to what they do well, and that is, engage the students. They just have to adjust it to this new platform, this new learning space.
And I like the way you're suggesting to teachers that they need to recognize the attention span of the students and perhaps chunking their lecture into different segments.
Yes.
Would that be a
Yes.
suggestion?
Definitely. And the chunking is not only, chunking it and take like 3 hours of a lecture and do the slideshow narration and then post it as 15-minute short videos. It's also changing it up and, bring in some variety. So you might have 15 minutes of explanation on a video, and then you might have a 5-minute, 10-minute quiz, and then you might introduce maybe a video for them to watch or a PDF document to work on, a problem to work on. So it's really the variety as well.
But you suggest the students should be working together online at the same time rather than just working at their own pace? Or do you?
That is what research show that to us, that when you work in this sort of environment where you can look at the learning that happens there and the learners as a community of learning, the more interaction and the deeper learning will happen when the communication is as a group and not one-on-one.
Really?
So
okay. And the
definitely,
research is showing that they just work better. Students work better.
yes.
Humans, I guess, work better.
Yeah. And you know what? We also have other research, McCrindle in Australia, Dr. Mary Donoghue here in Toronto. There are various people doing research on how different generations learn and how they communicate and collaborate, not only when they are making use of technologies, but because of the technologies that they grew up with and use.
Right.
One of the things that I found very interesting is, Gen Y, which is the millennials, and I would say almost like, third year and older students. One of the things they typically do is they get introduced to a new concept or idea, and they would go to a device and they start, Googling maybe an image, maybe a video, maybe more information, and they'll look at the other information and they'll go, oh yeah, okay, I believe you, you're right, or okay, I get it, that kind of thing. But we do know as well that the younger generation, Gen Z, second year and younger, they actually like to go to devices and often more than one, but then they want to see what their peers think and say about it. So when they go on devices and on platforms, they seek to go to places where they can see how their peers respond to this as well. And then they actually want to have time to reflect and say, oh, okay, this is what I think about this.
Yeah,
so
that's fascinating. I have seen this in action, and I didn't realize this was actually part of their generation, where I've had the students ask me a question. I give them the answer. They check it. I can see they're checking. Then they ask their friend, and I'm thinking, why are you asking your friend? I just told you the answer. But they want validation from their friend. It's a process that they're going through. Wow, that's fascinating.
So, I mean, if we know this and we understand this, then we can create these opportunities for them, where they can
very
learn
muan this generation. Yeah, it's fascinating. Now, the other complaint that students have told me early on, and I'm sorry, it's fresh in my mind because I was just talking with some university students prior to our conversation. They said, James, I feel a real lack of motivation. This is their number one problem. And I said, is it just you? Do your friends feel it? And in the entire chat group that I was on, they all said, number one problem is they're not motivated to study online. Why is that?
That is actually the most basic challenge we have in any self-directed learning experience. So whether it is, 20 years ago, they sent me snail mail with my learning that I had to do and, complete assignment and send it back, or whether we do the self-directed learning on digital platforms today, self-motivation and the self-discipline and time management, and all of these are skills that we need to learn. We don't grow up as children at home having to do that on our own. There are always somebody else who teaches and who help us. Then we go to elementary school and high school, and the same thing happens. We are never expected to really, go through the self-directed learning process. And this is something that requires skill, and this is something that requires self-discipline and, practice, and definitely motivation. There's actually a fantastic course on a platform where they share micro learning, and it's called Highbrow. And the course that I'm thinking about is, I think it's called The Fundamentals of Self-Discipline. And how this platform works is you sign up for a course and you receive your lessons once a day, and the lesson will not take you more than 5 minutes, and it includes quizzes, and you only receive it for 10 working days, so for 2 weeks. But that specific course, it starts with motivation and the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation and pro-social motivation. And I think when we understand that, we need motivation, and that we need to draw on motivation to get ourselves to do something, we can choose the right, and we can identify the right kind of motivation. For instance, extrinsic would be, I want to do this course because, or in this program because there's some status, or I would earn a certain amount of money one day. Intrinsic motivation would be more about the fact that you really enjoy learning about that, or it challenges you, or it can actually, you can feel it's going to improve you, or it maybe give you independence. And then pro-social motivation is when we feel we do something that will help other people. So I think even in that one aspect of motivation, if we understand motivation better and we can identify for ourselves why we do something, we can lean on that kind of motivation. But I often think we don't go, deep enough in ourselves to understand why we do things.
Yeah,
And then, of course,
sure.
yeah.
That's for sure. But I can hear teachers now saying, I am having a difficult time motivating my students. If I were teaching in a classroom and they were sitting there with me, I know I could motivate them to do this activity.
Yeah.
So what would you say to teachers who say that? Or I could speak to them one-on-one and I could motivate them I could sell this activity to them.
Well,
Online, it's different.
I think, maybe it takes us back to the carrot and the stick, We know that a big part of students' motivation is their grades. So even in this time, I think, if you had like one assignment left for your students to do, maybe you could consider breaking that up in smaller assignments and, just have some kind of motivation why we want to do what we're going to do in the next week, rather than we're going to cover content for 3 weeks and then you're going to do an assignment.
One of the techniques that I've used when teaching online is that I try to allow the students some freedom to demonstrate or show or teach me things in their life.
Yes.
So we were talking about, what was it? Somebody talked about this very beautiful actress in our class. And I said, show me. And they were shocked. What do you mean, show me? I said, well, Google her, put her up on the screen. Who is this beautiful woman? So they put her up on the screen, and then we talked about handsome men, what makes a beautiful woman, what makes a handsome man, blah, blah, blah. And it got off topic for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But after that, their motivation was then spiked again because they felt that they were part of the class.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's also something that I mentioned in that webinar, where we sort of connected. But I think, if you go back again to motivation, all of that, we like to do things that we find meaningful, that we believe add value to our lives, or that we can connect to our lives and associate with. So I like your example, and there are many more that we can use by, for instance, just connecting with what is going on in the world right now. And if you can connect your students' life and what's happening in the world right now to what you are teaching, it will be more meaningful to them. There's a wonderful framework, and I think, it's sort of originally was used for assessments. But I mean, I use this framework basically for anything in my life. And it's the ICE framework, ICE. And basically it boils down to this. The I stands for an idea. If, you get introduced to a new idea or a new place or a new, whatever it can be, piece of content, the next letter C stands for connections. What kind of connections can we make between this and it can be other disciplines? It can be other places in the world. It can be, anything else that you can make connections with that bring it closer to your own life. And then the E stands for extensions. So, and that is often something that you apply. So that takes you higher up in Bloom's taxonomy. So, what can we do with this knowledge and the connections that we've made? How can we apply this? How can we solve problems with this? The other thing that I loved, what you mentioned was, how you draw on their own experience. And another great teaching strategy is to ask students to teach other students what they've learned. So, how they always say, you can't teach something if you don't understand it yourself. And I think, that teach what you learn is always a great strategy as well.
Yeah, no, it was a great strategy because I think what online learning allows teachers to do is to give control of the classroom much, much easier to students because it's a simple Google click away or a video clip, as opposed to in the classroom. It's much harder if you're in a standard large size classroom. It's much harder to give control to the students. You've got to get them up in front of class. Maybe they got to connect to your computer. There's a whole array of technology issues that trap you. But online, you can just say, show me what you got. What are you guys talking about? I don't understand. Teach me. And then it also shows to the students feel that the teacher's actually listening and interested.
And what I also like about, the word that you use, show, because the one of the big differences between taking learning and teaching from a physical space to digital space is that the content all of a sudden can be multimedia.
Yeah.
And so this is the opportunity to invite your students to complete assignments that makes use of multiple media.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Now, the other equation in all of this are the parents. And I'm sure parents are pulling their hair out right now on a number of levels. Maybe thinking that their child needs to be 6 hours in front of the screen from 9 to 3 p.m. in high school, or they're looking at the content that they're studying going, what the heck is this stuff? What advice do you have for parents out there who are now staying at home with their kids, seeing online learning and maybe not seeing the online content and experience being, as at its best?
Yeah. Well, I think my first piece of advice would be your students don't want you to be their teacher or their instructor, their professor. What they really need from you is to be their parent, is to be their support system, to be the one who helps them find that motivation and maybe help them with time management skills and things like that. And my biggest advice to parents would be help your children to learn how to best learn when we have to do it online, when we have to do it in digital learning spaces. If you can be sort of the guide on the side who through this process try and come up with ideas and help them realize what works well for them, what time of the day, or is it to work in 15-minute sections and then take a break, or is it half an hour? Because every one of us do things differently. It really depends on the space we have where we sit and learn, the support structure. Like, there's so many variables. But if parents can help their children, find the best ways to learn.
Would you agree with this statement that parents should, over this next month or so, as every country is dealing with how to handle online teaching and moving their courses online, would you tell parents to lower your expectations?
Yes, all of us should. All of us should. Faculty members, instructional designers, administration. I think everybody should. We do have to understand that this is basically an emergency situation, emergency remote teaching that we are doing. And it's we all have to deal with, the uncertainty and the amount of news and troubling news that come our way. So, the best is to keep things, simple and short, and focus on one or two or three things that you would like to accomplish and learn through the process. And don't try and, do much more beyond that. Let's pick a few things, and at the end of this process, reflect and learn, and help us then prepare to be more prepared for another, event that might force us to find a new way of teaching or learning.
Final
question.
I
think that's inevitable. That's
it'll happen at some point. Yeah, something's going to happen, and it may not be globally. It may be in your community or locally. It may not be a global pandemic like we're experiencing now, but there may be situations in the future. Now, final question here, Krista. Has education changed forever?
I think so. I'm convinced it has. I think, what I said earlier on about people's comfort zones were stretched. And self-awareness and education in terms of what exactly are our digital competencies. And, what should we invest in more? And beyond that, just in terms of the industry, the amount of data that we are generating during this period, because we are extensively making use of digital platforms, is going to give us the ability to make use of more machine learning and AI to make things way better. So we can improve other aspects of education, like personalized learning and adaptive learning, and a lot of technological things can happen now that could not have happened if we didn't go through this period. So I have no doubt in my mind that this was like a fast forward in terms of progress. The use of augmented reality and artificial intelligence, the fact that I think what we've done in this period is we've created virtual campuses. And these virtual campuses, by going to different digital learning spaces, will augment the physical campuses. And we will now, after this period, have the opportunity to reflect on, okay, so what should that ideal virtual campus look like for, scenario A, B, and C?
And I think a lot of fear has left the teacher's mind and administrators' minds, and even maybe students' minds.
We've built confidence. People were forced to think very creatively. So I think, they feel empowered by that. Definitely built capacity. Way more people can now create narrated slideshows, can now, organize synchronous meetings. So we definitely, we did build capacity and confidence and creativity, most definitely.
So the pandemic has opened a Pandora's box. There we go. Thank you, Krista. That was a brilliant conversation. I learned so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and I've learned a lot from you. All the best, and all the best to everybody out there who, who try to find their way. Just take one step at a time.
Have you subscribed to James's newsletter? When you subscribe, you will receive a free Study It ESL textbook. Visit www.thejamesriceshow.com for more information and join today.
So that was a fascinating discussion with Krista, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did talking to her. It was really a wonderful discussion, and I want to thank everybody, as always, for their continued support here on The James Rice Show. It is always a pleasure to bring these episodes to you, and we've been doing a bit more. So check out Wednesday's episodes. We're doing like kind of an English is Crazy episode. It's a short 1-minute segment talking about the history of some expressions. It's very fun to do those. And, I have a little more time on my hands now, so I'm able to bring you some different types of content. So check those out. It's a lot of fun. Good one to bring into your classrooms, teachers, as well as, it's fun for students to look at the history of where these expressions came from. So check those out on Wednesdays. Just short, 1 minute. You can bring them into class and have them listen to it. A lot of fun. Let's take a look at our listeners for this past week. Brazil, number 1. Thank you, Brazil. Of course, we did some coronavirus special update last week, so that was great. Japan, number 2. The USA, number 3. Of course, it's fascinating here doing the podcast during this coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, because the habits, the listening habits of people are changing. So as the outbreak occurs in different countries, the listening audience actually goes down because, they're busy and stressed out doing other things, but also their habits change. Their lifestyle changes. And so in the U.S., you can see a bit of a drop in our listenership because, there's a lot going on there. Number 4, Canada. Number 5, the UK, United Kingdom. Number 6, France. Number 7, Mexico. Number 8, Korea. Number 9, Saudi Arabia, back in the fold. Welcome back to my Saudi friends. And number 10, Italy. So welcome, Italy. So that's great to have all of you back listening to the show. Some old countries that have returned to catching up on the James Rice Show, clearly. So I am looking forward to the Future of Education Conference tomorrow, which I'll be hosting, which you can watch online, and I believe it's streaming on Facebook. So if you are connected to me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to share that with you on my LinkedIn account, so you can go to that. I think also it's on my Twitter account. If not, it will be out there as well, and I'll try to put the link as well in this description of the podcast so you guys can follow it. So I would appreciate hearing from you guys. Tell us what's going on. Tell me about your online learning experience. Tell me about your online teaching experience. I have had some great conversations with students and with teachers about what's going on, and I hope that everybody, of course, stays safe. And as a James Rice Show listener, remember, be crazy.
Thanks for listening to The James Rice Show. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and send us your questions or comments at www.thejamesriceshow.com.